Hi, I'm Susan Shaner with Sage Leadership Strategies, and I'm your host today of Community Forum. And I have the great pleasure to have with me Wendy Cahill, who is the owner of Molten Java in Bethel. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show.
So,
yeah, sure. I wanted to have you on to talk about what it's been like for you to own this shop and how you got started and a little bit about your background.
Okay. Starting with my background.
Yeah.
Well, I've owned Molten Java for over 8 years now, and we just recently moved into a new location in Bethel. It's been a pretty amazing ride, I guess.
Because you've really grown and expanded, and
yeah, and mostly in the last 6 months, there's been a huge expansion and a huge growth. But I was lucky enough, maybe, to be able to ride a business through what was one of the worst recessions we've ever had.
Yeah, how did you do that?
I think part of it is a testament to the town I chose to be in. Mm-hmm. It's a walking town. It's a very loyal town with an amazing population of people who they kept coming despite, you know, I mean, I would hear daily that people were losing their jobs. It was when you're one-on-one with the public so much, I think you hear those things a lot more often.
Yeah.
But people kept coming in.
So how was it in 2008 and 2009 when it was pretty bad?
It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was really difficult. But I felt like I wanted to keep the business open, so I did everything I possibly could. I also have a very helpful family, honestly, who helped me through that time.
So just kind of helped you a little bit through that bad year.
Yeah, in order to, you know, sort of maintain my own personal life and bills and everything. But so I think I'm lucky in that respect, but I have support.
Yeah.
Beyond just, you know, there's no support for small business banks, and you know, all of the promises that were made really didn't come through for very small businesses. There weren't bailouts for the mom and pops. So we, you know, mostly it had to do with our love of what we do. I think that kept us open for that time period, and it's part of it's part of it. You know, you have to know that even within a year, there are so many ups and downs.
Yeah.
That it's just part of my job, I guess.
Yeah. Just kind of riding that wave.
Yeah.
So are you originally from the Danbury area?
I was born in Danbury and lived in Trumbull and Glastonbury. Went to high school in Glastonbury and then came back to Danbury for college. I went to WestCon.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm. I graduated with, I have an art major and a graduate degree in, what is my graduate? I don't even know. No, it's educational technology.
Oh,
because
wow.
I was a teacher before.
An art teacher?
I was an art teacher before I was a business owner.
And then educational technology, so that's incorporating the arts, or?
It was incorporating my graduate degree was incorporating the arts, but in general it's not an arts-related field.
Oh, wow, because it seems sort of very different.
I made it work.
So what's your medium, as an artist, what's your medium?
I graduated with a sculpture major. And, you know, I consider Molten Java sort of an installation. You know, it's definitely, it doesn't take my creative energy, but I put my creative energy into the space all the time.
Well, and you also typically have a lot of different artists' artwork on display.
That was a huge reason for
I mean, that's very cool. I mean, I know I had some artwork there shown for 1 month. I mean, every month you change the artist.
Yeah, and that's a huge reason why I'm there.
It's because of the artists?
Is to help keep alive the arts community in this area. Because we have an amazing community of artists here who choose to live here because it's, you know, it's easier to live here and do your work than it is to go down to Lower Fairfield County or Westchester or New York. So
If there could be a good value in Fairfield County, this is probably the last last spot.
Exactly. This is where you have to go.
Right. If we can say good
to
value in
actually
Fairfield County in one
survive.
sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so incredible artist community, incredible musicians community, and it was very important for me to integrate that into.
Well, that's the nice thing,
business.
that you've had also some, I mean, my husband's played there too. You've had some nice artists play there, some really cool music.
Yeah, and it's kind of the first place people can play. You know, it's very difficult to find venues to play your first time or when you're just starting out.
Yeah.
And I'm also a musician, so I went through years of having to hand out promo kits and,
Yeah.
you know, send mailings and make calls and do all these things. And I wanted to have a place where people didn't have to do that. Where I,
What do you play?
I'm a singer.
Oh, wow. So do you play, you sing at Molten Java?
No, I
I was
don't.
going to say, I've never.
I have, but the capacity is too small for us to play.
Yeah.
It becomes a fire problem.
Oh, okay. So you started out as a teacher teaching art and technology, or?
I started out as a musician, really, but in that also was teaching as a job.
As in the school system around here?
In New Canaan and Norwalk.
What grades?
Elementary.
Oh, wow. And then you just decided, want to do something else with it?
Yeah, I actually, it was sort of serendipitous, which I kind of believe in that whole, you know, if you put your energy towards what you want to do while you're doing something that's okay to do. Teaching wasn't my passion. You know, it was a great thing to do. I had a great time, but my passion was to open a cafe or a coffee house. So I would do drawings and I would design them and learn. I learned the business before I was a teacher. And then I was laid off. So I took a loan on my house and jumped in.
Oh, so you really took a risk to open up the shop.
Yeah.
And so 8 years ago, opening up the shop, was that the first business that you had?
Other than music, yes.
Okay.
But I had managed other coffee houses and food-related businesses before.
While you were teaching?
Before I was teaching.
Before you, okay.
Yeah.
Just to get that experience because you knew this was a goal someday?
Yeah. Yeah, the more I worked with coffee and the more I spent time in those kinds of venues, coffee houses and cafes, the more I knew I wanted to.
What's with the coffee? You're like,
Well,
the more I work with coffee. What about the coffee?
I lived in San Francisco for 2 years, and when I was there, I learned to roast coffee. I worked on in the tourist area on the bay, and we had a coffee roaster. So I became the coffee roaster at the store I worked in. And so that's where, I mean, I had loved
does it
coffee.
smell of coffee, or is there something about?
I think it's hard to explain. It's sort of like people who love wine.
Yeah.
Or cigars, or
Yeah.
you know, anything like that. And people do love coffee.
Yeah.
They really do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So do you drink a lot of coffee?
I do drink a lot of coffee.
Does
I
it
really do?
Really? Like
Yeah.
caffeinated? Does it affect you?
Yes. Now it does now. When I hit 40, you know, I started to, it started to affect me. I started to be awake a little bit too long at night and things like. I have to be a little more careful now.
So, like, how many cups a day do you drink? True confessions. Is that?
It depends on if I'm working way too much. Probably 7 or 8 cups of coffee.
Wow. No wonder why you have
But
trouble
that's,
sleeping.
you know, espresso, 7 or 8.
They're little cups.
They're tiny.
Wow.
And
So-
it's, you know, the coffee that I roast, because the coffee's roasted there, it's pretty potent. It doesn't lose, you know, any caffeine.
So
or
is it
anything.
like there's a whole art to roasting the coffee?
There is, but it's more, I think there's roasters who roast in those big giant drum roasters, and they're a little more, my roasters are a little easier, honestly. to roast with because they're like they're sort of like giant popcorn poppers, like air poppers. So it's easier to monitor the beans, but it's more about what you like and a style of roasting. So I have a very specific roast that I use called calico roast. So it's partially light and partially dark.
So what does that mean? Like, what does it take to roast
There's
the beans?
the beans, the longer you roast the beans, the darker they get. And the flavor changes. So it's pretty popular. It was pretty popular for a while to do the full city, and I'm not going to mention who made that trend, but
I can imagine.
you know, the big guys. And to the extent where it got to, people didn't like it because it was too dark. And then, so the less you roast it, obviously, the lighter the bean, and the more caffeine is in it.
The lighter it is, the more caffeine.
The lighter it is, the more caffeine, because the caffeine burns off a little bit in the roasting process.
I don't know if I ever knew that. That's interesting.
So people assume that a stronger coffee has more caffeine, but that's not true.
I
It's
would have thought the
actually a
darker the
milder-
roast, the stronger the caffeine. That's
A
interesting.
milder coffee has more caffeine, really. I mean, it's probably not that big of a difference, but
Yeah.
so in my roasts, we roast a darker roast and a lighter roast, and we mix them together.
And that just makes it a little...
It just changes the flavor profile, so you get that nice, like, the light bean has a nice full flavor, and then the darker one has that nice robust finish.
So you just buy... How do you source your beans? You just buy your beans not roasted, you roast them, and...
Yeah, in the big
Yeah.
burlap sacks that you see. We get them in 150-pound bags, which is sort of like carrying a human being in. They're really heavy.
Really? Wow.
And we stack them around the back of the bar and it's only 2 pounds at a time that we roast. It's sort of a micro version.
And all those 150-pound bag of beans lasts a while?
Not as long as not as long as they used to. A couple months.
I mean, they're
Probably.
good for that long, or you just go through them that...
Coffee beans are good for a really long time.
Oh, okay. That's how much you go through.
They actually don't spoil very, very quickly. But yeah, we roast. I mean, roasted beans only last a little while. But when they're green, they're good for a very long time.
Wow. So you've really kind of learned the whole art of this.
Yeah, and I think it's really, roasting is each of my employees who roast, or my baristas who roast, it takes them a little while to learn the subtleties of the different beans.
So have you trained them, or?
I do, but it's really better. I mean, I train them to do it, and then they kind of
Figure it out.
learn it as they go along, which is how I did it too. Because one bean, like an Ethiopia bean, will act differently in the roaster than a Brazil. One is harder to roast than the other, and you have to keep more of an eye on it. And
So somewhere along the way, when you were getting your degree, you realized you really like coffee shops, and you wanted to be an owner of a coffee shop.
yeah, I knew that before because I worked at Seattle Espresso in Danbury.
Okay. So what about it appealed to you?
It's the community aspect of it. I'm really community oriented, especially in the Danbury, Bethel area. And it just seemed like the right fit for me because I can contribute to, the activities that are going on and keep in contact with everyone who I like to say I meet a lot of great people every day.
You must meet a lot of people. Like, how many people go through there on a weekly basis? Is it more now that you're in a different location? It's what?
It's probably thousands. I mean,
Really?
it's repeated customers, though, as well. So, there's hundreds of regulars, though. So I get to know people, a fair amount of people on a daily basis. And it's sort of like being a bartender.
Yeah.
But it's better because people are sober.
Right.
Hopefully.
They may be a little, high strung, but they're sober.
Yeah, but they're sober. Yeah, they talk even
A little
more.
wired. Yeah.
Which is great because they talk a lot. So, I get to know people as they go through their days and their weeks and everything. I love that. Love it. And I get to be involved in a lot of different community organizations and do a lot of, I mean, we always are happy to help people who are doing any kind of charity work or anything. I think in general, downtown businesses contribute a lot to local charities and organizations. It's part of what we need to do.
Yeah. So what's been some of the challenges running the shop and doing retail?
I think making a living.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Your margins
That's
are probably
the challenge.
pretty low.
The rest of it is fun. You know, the learning curve has been exactly what I need as a person. Like, I just have that, I like to learn as I go along, including, you know, adding a menu and everything. There's a lot more food now.
Yeah.
But making a living is a really hard thing to do.
So how do you do that?
I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm doing it yet.
I mean, you've kind of kept along. I mean, 8 years is a long time. I mean, most businesses go out of business in the first 2 to 5 years. Not only that, you did it at the worst time of the economy in 100 years. So you must be doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, people are coming in even more so now with the move.
Is that because of your location or just?
Well, the reason for the new location is definitely more attractive.
Yeah.
To people. It's not just the parking, it's the building and the space, and we are all happier working there.
Yeah.
You know, the staff is happier.
Just because of the environment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's almost twice as many of us now, though. So I think, but in general, I just think it's a place people really love.
What's been some of your greatest learnings?
Managing employees.
So what's that about? Like, give us a flavor.
I'm a terrible mom. I'm like the bad aunt who, you know, bad influence on people. I don't like managing people. I like, you know, because it puts a rift. You know,
you
there's
gotta
a
have to
separation
set the rules
between
in
us.
the guidelines. Yeah.
So I don't manage that way. And that can become a problem for me sometimes.
So how do you manage?
How do I manage? It's hard to say. I am very close to I consider my baristas a family. And, you know, hope that they react and act as though they were caring for and thinking about their family. And I think they feel that way. They're very loyal.
Yeah.
And my employees stay with me for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, sometimes a loose management style can cause problems, but for the most part, I think it's been a really good thing to do.
So what's been some of your challenge with it?
With the looseness?
Yeah.
Probably just trying to convince them that I do have the experience beyond them. You know, that I'm asking them to do things because of my experience, rather than it's not just for me, but it's also because if in order for them to have a paycheck, the place has to stay open and the customers have to continue coming through the door.
Yeah, because you have a different perspective than they do.
Right.
I mean, you actually see the books and you're running the big picture, and they're waiting on people.
Right.
Yeah.
Customer and employees' perspectives with businesses are the amount of people that come through the door and the numbers that they see. The second tier of it is the realization that there is a humongous amount of overhead to run a business.
Yeah.
And everybody gets paid first before me.
Yeah.
And I'm actually a stickler for that. I don't carry balances and bills.
Yeah.
And obviously I always pay my employees, so that's what people don't see.
Right.
And including employees, you know, they just kind of see.
Right.
the register ringing up
Yeah,
sales.
yeah, but seeing that there's expenses that go against that.
Right, right.
So it's like you might be making
Yeah.
all this money, but then what gets balanced out against it? They don't see the
Yeah.
balance sheet. Yeah.
And what happened in the recession is everything went up a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, prices of simple things for just, I know that people with families know that, you know, milk, things, simple things like that just went crazy.
Yeah.
And they never went down.
Yeah. Except real estate.
Except real estate, which went down a huge
What's that about?
My house is worth nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so you said that you leveraged your house to do the business. So.
That it was at a really good time, just before the recession, and I was able to pay it back within a year. So, because I sold the house, and so it was a perfect time to open a business.
Oh wow.
And then the recession happened.
So, what advice would you give someone like you, let's say today, who was thinking of starting such a business?
I think I have to sort of field that question a lot because people ask me all the time. And honestly, the answer to that question is work in the business before you open the business.
Yeah.
Because people come in all the time and say, I've always wanted to open a coffee house.
It seems kind of romantic, like I always want to run a B&B.
I've always
They don't
wanted
see
to
the
run a
crack of
B&B,
dawn,
exactly.
You know?
But have you ever worked in
Yeah.
a hotel? Or have you ever actually worked in a cafe or a deli, and how long have you worked there? And did you get up to the point where you were actually doing orders and that part of the business? Because going in cold and learning from books is just it's not realistic. The books that are written for business have value, and I have, you know, a whole bookcase full of them, but the most important part, they kind of romanticize it too.
Yeah.
Like, look at how much this costs and how much you'll get for it.
Right, right. Oh, it seems so easy.
It's always a simple
like
equation
1 to 1,
like
boom,
that.
that's it.
Yeah. But you really, until you learn that you have to deal with distributors and constantly checking your prices and also manage your employee, like all of the different aspects of running a business every day, the fact that you always have to be on the other end of that phone. You cannot go away.
Yeah.
You know, even if you're not there, you have to be there.
So are you ever allowed to, do you have somebody run this shop enough where you can like take a vacation?
I'm actually going to take a vacation.
Is this the first time in a long time? You sound surprised. Is this like, when was the last time you took a vacation?
But in my previous location, I had a little more time. It's totally different now. Now I'm very tied to so I'm a little nervous about.
Because it's also more overhead than the other place, right?
Right, and there's a lot more responsibility with the food and everything, but my staff is amazing, and they'll pull it together.
Because you expanded the
food, the menu. in
So,
general.
so how do you feel about going on vacation?
I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm at the other end of my phone all the time, so they can text me, and nothing horrible could happen, really.
Yeah.
There's people, there's text to come and fix things, and if that has to, I just have to. It's sort of like leaving your pets, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You just have to leave a really good list and
right.
hope that everything works out.
Yep. Hope they don't wreck the furniture.
Yeah.
So, you said one of the challenges is, the balance sheet, the P&L.
Yeah.
Whatever your margins are, earning a profit. You said some of it's been learning around management, some of the challenges there. Any other challenges? You said you like to learn, so this has clearly been a really good learning experience for you.
Yeah, it's been a huge learning experience. It really has. I can't believe, when I opened the doors of the new location, I couldn't believe that I'd pulled it off in 3 months. It was an amazing feeling to build. I took an empty space and made it into a restaurant.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience to be able to design the space and
Oh, that's very cool.
Have all the people working around me, to help. figure it all out and get all the equipment in and everything and hooked up. And but I think, you know, every single part of it is a challenge, but it's a good challenge. I think that the challenge is to keep it all in order. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a paper person. I keep a lot of it in my head.
You do. You must have.
Because you know, it's constantly rolling.
A very big brain, then. How do you? I don't know how you keep it all in your head.
I don't know. No, but it's a constantly sort of rolling process. You know, everything is always constantly happening. It never stops. So it's almost hard to know exactly when.
So what's the one thing that you just absolutely love about it, or glad that you did it?
It's the community. It's making a community, because you know, the day that we had our first baby born, because two people, you know, met
at the shop.
At the shop.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, when we put his picture up, it was so cool. That kind of thing is just, you can't trade the family that ends up happening. You know, watching all the people meet, and just totally people who would never speak with each other.
Yeah.
You know, all different kinds of political affiliations or beliefs or whatever. Everybody seems to kind of be comfortable enough to be themselves in the space.
Yeah.
And that's what was, you know, that's what I had hoped would happen. I didn't want it to be exclusive in any way.
Yeah. It's kind of reminded me of, as you're talking, you remember the show, I'm probably going to date myself now, Cheers?
Yeah.
So it reminds me of like that.
It's a lot like that. And there's, you know, inevitably there's going to be people who are like, oh, you know, like, oh, here they come.
Yeah.
You take care of them.
right. Those regulars.
But you kind of like them anyway.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that you don't want to talk to them today.
Right.
People who are really, really cheerful in the morning, you know.
Right.
But that's the best part of it, is the community that has grown around it.
That's great. Well, that's a great note to end on. So, Wendy, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Susan Shaner. Until next time with Community Forum, thank you for joining us.